outside into the lobby. Okay, it is Thursday, September 15th, 2022. We are here at the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency headquarters in West Palm Beach. And I'm going to ask for our clerk to call the roll. Oh, by the way, your microphones may have a problem, so be careful when you start speaking. Make sure your red light is on, and if it isn't picking you up, clerk will let us know.
Thank you. I will now call the roll. At this time, I'm only asking those board members attending in person to respond by saying "here" when I call your name. As a reminder, you can unmute your microphones by pushing the button at the bottom of the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TPA board representative. Steve Wilson.
Here.
Yvette Drucker.
Here.
Andy Thompson. Angela
Here am
Cruz.
I.
Thank you. Shelley Petrolia. Joel Flores. Jim Koretsky.
Here.
Ronaldo Diaz.
Here.
Joni Brinkman.
Here.
Catherine Waldron, Melissa McKinley, and Maria Marino are all absent. Maria Sachs. Here. Greg Weiss is absent. Shirley Lanier. Fred Pinto.
Here.
Michael Napoleon.
Here.
Christy Fox. Joseph Peduzzi.
Here.
Chelsea Reed. Here. And Robert Weinroth.
I am here. Thank you.
You have a quorum.
Just to make a note, there's a FACT meeting, Florida Association of Counties. That's why several of my colleagues were not able to attend today. Okay, I'm going to ask Mayor Wilson, if you would be so kind as to give us an invocation today and lead us in the pledge. Everybody, please rise.
Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we come to you once again with bowed heads and humble hearts, thanking you for your grace and your mercy. Realizing, Father, over and over again that through your grace and your mercy, you've been better to us than we've been to ourselves. And with that, we say thank you. Thank you, Father, for being that beacon of light when it's dark on our side. Thank you, Father, for keeping us clear of the evildoers of the world. Help us to trust you, Father, so that we may find peace and rest upon you when trouble comes our way. Father, we know that the world is in your hand, and our service to you as mankind is far from perfect. But we also know that we serve you, Father, with humble hearts. Our service is valued by you each and every day. Realizing, Father, that you didn't leave us here on this earth to do it all on our own. Thank you for your love and your guidance and the people you often place in our lives to help us along the way. And finally, Father, we ask a special blessing for our chairperson. You know it's hard, and all of us whom you have allowed to be assembled here today, realizing that we're no strangers to each other, just perhaps friends we have not yet met. We give you all the praises and the glory. Amen. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. You always establish a appropriate tone for our meetings. Okay, are there any modifications to the agenda, Executive Director or Clerk or whoever wants to help me on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is one modification. We just have a member asking to participate remotely. Andy Thompson is asking to participate due to child care needs at home.
All right, can you see if there's anybody online who wants to participate remotely?
Besides Andy or general public comments.
Let's take care of the people who would like to be on virtually if they are.
Yes, that would just be Andy Thompson at this point.
Andy, you there?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. Without objection, we will allow the virtual participation of Councilman Andy Thompson. Seeing no objection, he is now part of the meeting. Okay. Next order of business.
There are no general public comments at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Do we have any general public comments?
There are no public comments at
No
this
public
time.
comment cards. Okay, we can move right along. Any comments from the membership? Council Member Drucker.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good morning. So I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback. I had the opportunity to join our executive director Valerie at the NACO conference, which took place in Boston last week. And NACO is a National Association of City Transportation Officials. We're about 1,000 officials, planners, and practitioners in the state of transportation across cities through the entire United States and including Canada participated. From an elected, it was a great way to not only learn about other cities, small, large, medium, but also to understand from like just a transit perspective, things that can be done. So I really enjoyed the time. The conference is made up of workshops that you get to participate in. So for me, I signed up for Government Center and City Hall because our city is looking at a future government center. And I also signed up for like bike and pedestrian mobility, last mile services with the Brightline arriving in Boca Raton. So I highly encourage you all to attend. I know Valerie will share a little bit more information today or forthcoming, but it was an amazing conference just because you get to see a different side of the actual work being done in different places and how it could work in your cities. So I know it's a little long conference, so I know we didn't have a lot of people participating, but I would highly encourage if your city is going through transit changes. So thank you, Valerie, for encouraging me to attend. I really got a lot from it. I'll be presenting to my council. I already had a little brief commissioner's report this past Monday, but I'm going to go ahead and put something together at the request of my council. They want to know what I came back with. So
Very
just wanted to
good.
share that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's been pointed out that I forgot to approve the agenda. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion by Mayor Wilson, seconded by my Vice Chair Reed. All in favor, all opposed. That's good. We can continue. Thank you. All right. Any other members of the board who'd like to be recognized? I'm seeing no other cards up. I'm just going to make some brief comments. First of all, when we get to the motion to approve the consent agenda, there are several items on there that are from the executive committee. And so I'll address those a little bit more in detail when we get to the consent agenda. I did want to say that I think it may be time to review our procedure as far as virtual attendance. I think we've been kind of lax as far as the requirements to attend virtually. And I think a lot of that's left over from the days of COVID. And I think we probably should tighten up on the necessity for virtual membership. Paul, tell me specifically, what is the state of the law with respect to virtual attendance at this body?
The state of the law basically has been determined by the Florida Attorney General at the present time and in a number of opinions. And basically what they are saying is that if you are going to attend virtually, the first thing that has to be determined is whether or not there's a quorum that's physically present. Once the physical quorum is determined, then with regard to each individual member, there has to be what the Attorney General refers to as a significant circumstance for your ability to be approved by the quorum to attend virtually. A significant circumstance has been determined in a number of different Attorney General's opinions to usually be something like exactly what the term says, something significant. For instance, a medical problem. In the past, Mr. Chair, as you indicated, we've been somewhat lax because we've used the excuse of people not wanting to attend in person because of COVID. That's probably a significant circumstance. I don't feel like coming today is not a significant circumstance. Traffic in downtown West Palm Beach, while it may be significant, probably doesn't quite get to the muster of being a significant circumstance. But it's usually something medical, something that's truly significant. There is no opinion that says that you've got to be out of town on business is a significant circumstance, although I'll tell you that I've seen many elected bodies around the state approve that as a circumstance. The Attorney General has fortunately done one other thing for us, and they've said that the people that are going to decide whether or not there is a significant circumstance is you. It's going to be left to your sound discretion to determine that. So that's the state of the law.
Thank you, Paul. So what I'm going to suggest is that going forward, we certainly not cut off the opportunity for someone to attend virtually, but perhaps we are going to ask for the reason for that request. And we certainly did not ask today Councilman Thompson for his rationale, and we're not going to go back onto that. But let's all understand that, like Paul said, just because you don't want to drive into West Palm Beach is really not going to be a significant circumstance. And Paul, tell me, again, we have several members today who are in Miami because of the FACT meeting. If any one of them had wanted to participate today, would the fact that they're in Miami for another meeting be a significant circumstance?
There has been no opinion of the Attorney General's office, and we're going back 30 years, that would justify that as a significant circumstance. However, the flip side of that is that based on one of the more recent opinions, the Attorney General has indicated that who's going to make the determination is this body.
Okay. I'm just going to ask that the members who attend these meetings to make every effort to be here. I think the participation in person is much more helpful than, having participated in meetings virtually. I think you feel more like a spectator than as a participant. And I think for the purposes of us, and we're a very diverse body of municipalities and the county commission, I think it's more helpful for us to be in the room together than to have members who are not here with us. Vice Chair?
Well, I would just like to say that every year when we approve our calendar, that it behooves each of our 21 members to look at it and plan their year out. And if they're unable to attend, to assure that their alternate is available. It's that simple, just a little bit of planning. So if you don't plan, then you won't be here. So take a look. Last year when we passed it, I think I got 5 text messages the next day saying, oops. So let's all take a look at that calendar well ahead and make sure that we can be here to do our duty.
Okay, so members are on notice that going forward, we're going to ask, if you are asking to participate virtually, we're also going to ask you to state your purpose or your reason, that what the significant circumstance was that you're asking this body to allow you to attend virtually. All right. As I said, and I'm going to get to the executive director's report, and I'm probably going to be redundant in some ways with what she's going to say, but I just wanted to, again, this body has empowered the executive committee to address some issues, and for the most part, those issues will, if we deem them to be something that this body needs to make a decision on, we'll then report them to this body. There are several items today. In fact, they're on the consent agenda, which you're going to be seeing. So I'm going to tell you to take particular attention to the meeting minutes for the TPA executive meeting of August 29th, because at that time we dealt with the executive director's contract. We made some technical amendments, which will be today. We're asking you to approve. We also addressed the issue of an agency clerk, which is, again, is going to be an item that's going to be on the consent agenda for you to approve. And I think that the executive committee is meeting on a regular basis to try and deal with these issues so that when they get to this point that they're pretty well fleshed out. But certainly, any one of these items, you don't need to bless what the executive committee has decided. It is this body's responsibility to make the ultimate decision on those items. That being said, I'm now going to let our executive director give her report.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you all for coming. It's been, we took a break last month, so a lot has been happening, and there's a lot on and even more that I couldn't squeeze on here, but I'm going to try and briefly touch on a few things. First, I wanted to welcome Tyler Radenbaugh, our new transportation planner, who's joined our program development team, and also congratulate Brian Rusher, who's been promoted to Deputy Director of Multimodal, as well as Valentina Bacus, who's our new, has been promoted to Lead Planner, Pedestrian and Bicycle
I'm
Coordinator.
going to
So-
interrupt you just for a second and let the record show that Mayor Petrolia has joined us. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, big news, I want to congratulate Commissioner Christy Fox for being selected to participate in the National Complete Streets Champions Institute. She is the only elected official selected from Florida to participate, and only one of 15 nationally from 11 states. So we're really excited and proud to have her be selected as a champ for this Champions Institute. Previously, we had Palm Beach Gardens Mayor Reed and City of Boca Raton Councilmember Thompson participate. So very excited, and just wanted to congratulate you. Thank you for your leadership. Also, great news, Town of Juno Beach and the City of Lake Worth Beach adopted Vision Zero resolutions this past month. And to that, we have 10 local municipalities who have adopted Vision Zero resolutions so far, and we're working with those municipalities and with the county as well to advance and pursue Vision Zero action plans in those communities. So very excited about that and looking forward to more municipalities getting on board. We have those examples of those resolutions on our website at palmbeachgpa.org/safety, as well as the list of those municipalities. Also, FDOT was awarded a RAISE grant for $25 million to fund and construct supplemental rail safety improvements along the FEC for Brightline service in partnership with them. That's 195 miles from Miami-Dade to Brevard County. So that's a really exciting, great news. We were rooting for that. So very excited about that. Also, SFRTA has a new executive director, David Deck, who came to our region from Austin, Texas. He used to be the vice president of rail operations there. So we're really excited to work with him. If you didn't notice, there's a public art transportation mural on top of our building. If you didn't notice on the way in, please take a look at it on the way out. We're really excited to have that on our building, and it's themed around transportation, multimodal transportation. So it's been something that when we first moved into this building, it's not our building, we leased this building, but we couldn't get rid of this kind of shark fin that we had at the top. So we said, what could potentially happen there? And the city really promotes public art. So that was a great effort that finally came to fruition, and staff worked on it, a lot of back and forth with permits and coordinating things, but it came to life. So we're really excited about that. And tomorrow morning, if anyone wants to stop by, we are celebrating International Parking Day, which constitutes of activating a parking space to be for a public use. So we're using, we're going to have bicycle pedestrian safety information to get involved and learn more about the TPA. And we're partnering with the City of West Palm Beach DDA on that. There's also a couple events coming up that I encourage everyone's participation. We're presenting with Brightline and PBIA at the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce coming up next week. If any board members would like to attend, please let us know. Also, we have Andrew on our staff will be presenting at the Securing Our Future Economic Mobility Summit that the county is hosting at the Convention Center also in 2 weeks. So encourage your participation. We'll be going on a peer exchange to Austin, Texas at the end of the month. So we're excited to go on that and come back and present what we learned from that region. David Deck actually is coming with us from SFRTA. So it'll be great to coordinate and collaborate with him. And We did do a downtown intermodal coordination workshop to talk about all the different projects, both transportation and economic development that's happening in downtown, trying to bring all those partners together and collaborate and coordinate better on that. We're having a post workshop on October 21st to present what we heard and next steps for us and for our partners to work better together and help with all the coordination of transportation and economic development downtown. One of those next steps for us will be really focusing in on Okeechobee and just the downtown section and evaluating options for that. And also there's a flyer in front of you for National Walk and Roll to School Day. I want to encourage all of our board members to reach out to one of your local schools. On the back, there's a list of all the schools who have participated in the past, but on the front at this website, there's a bunch of information on how to get involved, how to register a school, and find out who's participating this year. And reach out and join your local school and walk with your students, encourage walking and biking to school. That's on Wednesday, October 12th. We'll be joining the Palm Beach County School District in their celebration, but we'd love to also join and celebrate, highlight any other board members that are joining their local schools for that. And lastly, just to piggyback on Councilmember Drucker's comments, we went to the National Association of City Transportation Officials conference in Boston last week. It was really great. There was over 200 cities represented, over 1,200 participants, and transportation officials from Congress, from different levels. It was very, very great to see what other folks are doing to solve transportation issues, innovative ideas. We, as Councilmember mentioned, we walked a lot. I think we walked over 19 miles. So in addition to being in sessions and learning from everyone, there was also a lot of activities to go and look at projects, hands-on, bicycle facilities, transit, roadway, all kinds of facilities. So it was a very great conference. I encourage more board members to attend. The next one's going to be in Denver in May. Also, coming up, if board members are interested, there's the Association of Metro MPOs conference happening at the end of October in Minneapolis, and Railvolution is a conference that moves around North America, and it's about transit-oriented development, land use, first last mile connections, and multimodal transportation. It's happening in Miami our region is hosting it this year. Next year it'll be in Phoenix. Previously it was in Vancouver. I do encourage everyone to attend. There'll be a regional day on November 2nd. Mayor Weinroth will be presenting on that with the chairs of Broward and Miami-Dade MPO. Clinton Forbes will also be presenting on a panel. I'll be presenting on a panel, but it's really a coming of all the folks involved with transportation here in South Florida that'll be there, as well as nationally. So I encourage your participation. If you can go, please let us know. And just want to put in a plug to save the date for our regional Safe Street Summit. It'll be February 2nd to 3rd in Hollywood, Florida. So that's my director's report. Thank you.
Any questions of Valerie? Seeing none. Okay, we're going to move forward now to the consent agenda.
I do have an in-between interjection. We want to take a group photo
Me
because
too.
the one that we have is a bit old. So we want a refreshed group photo from our board for our TPA materials and our website. So if everyone would be so kind to gather for a group photo.
You want to do that now?
Yes.
While we're still fresh.
Yes. Well, we're
Okay.
still here. So if we could gather here in the front, thank you.
All right. All right,
Mr.
we are
Chair,
back
Mr. Chair,
now.
I would just like to note for the record that Woodrow Hay has joined the meeting right before the photo on behalf of Boynton Beach as the alternate for Angela Cruz.
How are you? Haven't seen you in a while, Commissioner. It's good to see you. There you go. It's
Amen
good
to
to be
that.
above ground. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda. As I said, there are several items on here. First, I'd like to recognize Jason Kaufman. I believe you're in the audience. How are you? Mr. Kaufman's appointment to the TPA Advisory Committee is going to be part of our consent agenda. He comes to us from Delray Beach, and he is the Engineering Division Manager. Thank you very much for being willing to serve on this committee. I also, as I said, am calling your attention to the fact that we're going to today on the consent agenda designate an agency clerk. This was not something that was in the original documents. It was something that the executive director was sort of charged with, and this is going to allow her to make the decision to designate a clerk or continue to be the clerk for the agency. And I believe she has made a decision to designate a clerk. We also are going to sunset the idea of having an at-large member on the Citizens Advisory Committee. The people who are now the at-large members, there are two, will sunset, I believe, in 3 years. Was that the ultimate decision?
Yeah, so our operating procedures say that every board member can appoint a citizen to the Citizens Advisory Committee. However, we have two members that are there grandfathered in, but they have no term because they existed before the bylaws and the operating procedures were adopted. So this would officially appoint them to the committee, but give them a 3-year term, just like everybody else. And then those grandfathered seats would be sunsetted after the 3 years, and they would have to be appointed by a board member.
All right, so they will need to look for a sponsor between now and 3 years from now. All right, and finally, as I said, the executive director's employment contract, we made some tweaks to it. The most substantive issue was we made the decision to allow her, if we do separate, to either take her money either in a lump sum or to be paid out over a normal cycle so that it would be easy for the incumbent to manage their financial affairs during that period of time. Other than that, there really was very little change. So I'm going to look for a motion to approve the consent agenda. I have Councilman Napoleon who has made the motion to approve.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Sacks. Is there any conversation, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed? I will take that as a unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Okay, we're going to now move on to the action items, and I'm going to ask the Executive Director to introduce item 2A.
Great. We're going to have Jason Price, our lead planner and transportation improvement program coordinator, present this item, a resolution approving an amendment to our fiscal year 23-27 transportation improvement program. And Jason, take.
Good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to present the roll forward amendment number 1 to the Transportation Improvement Program. This includes the FDOT roll forward report, as well as a request to modify 2 projects as in addition to the roll forward report. And as always, as a reminder to the group, this is an action item that will require a roll call vote at the end of the presentation and discussion. Now, to describe the first amendment to the TIP is always the roll forward report submitted by FDOT. And the roll forward report is the first amendment because it's the opportunity for FDOT to maintain consistency by rolling forward funds from the fiscal year 22 to 26 TIP document that we previously have been operating under, rolling forward the funds that have not been obligated or that are still programmed on these projects and rolling them forward into the new TIP document, which is the fiscal year 23 through 27 Transportation Improvement Program. So what's happening is we're adding in the funds that are still remaining on those projects from a previous TIP to this current TIP that will soon begin operating under in October. In total, there's about $114 million being rolled forward. There's about $480 million in total for fiscal year 22. So this is the remaining funds from fiscal year 22 being rolled forward into fiscal year 23. And there's about approximately 60 projects being impacted by this roll forward. And as always, TIP amendments are triggered by specific actions, and this particular action, the cost is increasing for projects by more than 20% or $2 million. And so with that happening, that requires an amendment. And also, an amendment only impacts the projects that are listed in the FDOT roll forward report. There is a number of other projects within the Transportation Improvement Program that are not included in the FDOT roll forward report that are not impacted by taking action on this amendment. So the $114 million that I mentioned previously is broken down into the different TIP sections. The most notable is the TPA priorities for state road modifications. There's about $80 million being rolled forward, and I'm going to cover a couple of those projects in the next slide, followed by a few smaller amounts for local initiatives and transportation alternatives. And you see the other TIP sections within the document for railroad and SIS capacity at $16 million and $11 million. Now, the projects with the most roll forward, you see here listed, the complete list is in the backup document, itemizing each one of them. And to looking at this slide here, the current TIP has the 2023 amounts that we previously adopted in June. The roll forward amount is what we're going to add back to those projects from fiscal year 22. And then the last column there is the new TIP, is the new funding amounts that will be reflected after this amendment takes effect. Now, you can see from the projects, the first 2 projects, like I mentioned, were state road modification projects for State Route 7, 60th to North Lake Boulevard, and then State Route 7 from Okeechobee Boulevard to 60th, followed by the other 2 projects, Boca Raton Passenger Rail Station and Military Trail at Forest Hill Boulevard. And again, all the complete list is in the backup. Now, in addition to the roll forward, there was two length changes that needed to be incorporated or was at the request of FDOT. And the first one was Atlantic Avenue from State Route 7 to west, from west of Lyons Road. The existing length was 1 mile, and then they wanted to include the other legs of this particular project on State Route 7, and so it increased the length to 2.296 miles. The next project is Beeline Highway from Martin County line to Old Dixie Highway. They do plan on doing the entire 23 miles. However, they're going to phase it out. They're going to do it in phases as the funding becomes available. And so that's why there's a length change from 23 miles to 1.6. As I said, the whole 23 miles will be completed, but the first leg of it will be 1.6 miles. Now, all of this information has been presented to our advisory committees, and they have provided votes and input, and that's what you see on the slide here. The Technical Advisory Committee recommended adoption 18-3 with some dissension from Boynton Beach and West Palm Beach due to the inclusion of State Route 7 extension. The Citizen Advisory Committee, we did not have a quorum at that time, so they were not able to take a formal action, but they were able to receive the presentation and provide input and comment. The Vision Zero Advisory Committee also saw the presentation and recommended adoption 11-3, again with dissension from West Palm Beach due to the inclusion of State Route 7 extension, as well as the Disabled Community Representative dissented due to concerns with the conflict with mixed use paths and people with disabilities and the interaction amongst them. And lastly, Palm Trend representative also dissented due to operational concerns for Forest Hill, for the Forest Hill Boulevard intersection. And with that, that concludes the presentation. I'll ask for a motion to adopt the amendment number 1.
Thank you. I'm first going to look for any comments from the board. And I'm also going to ask, I see Mr. Forbes is here. Perhaps you can shed some light on the comment with respect to the Palm Trend representative having some concerns. Is this a concern of the agency or just was this an individual concern?
Good morning, Chair, members. Clinton Forbes, Executive Director of Palm Trend. That was his first meeting. And we weren't able to prep him. Look, it was fine to have strong reservations about, the pedestrian impacts to modifying that roadway and put those on the record. But we, as you know, we have a lot of projects in this program. And so our vote is reflected no here, but we support the Transportation Improvement Program. And we also support our staff's reservations about that particular project.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Appreciate the clarification. Commissioner Sachs, you're recognized.
I don't think the red, here it is. Thank you, Mayor. May I ask a couple of questions of Mr. Price regarding those
Absolutely.
last two? Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Price. One of the issues that you brought up was the road lengthening on Atlantic Avenue between Lyons Road and 441. And the way it looked to me is that you are obviously extending the FDOT's improvement west of 441. This is in my district. This is why it's of concern to me. There is a county park that situated west of 441, approximately 3 miles west, and that's where Atlantic Avenue ends, is right at this park. My question
Commissioner,
is
I'm
this,
gonna
why is it that
I'm going to let Jason clarify, but I don't think that this project goes west of 441.
It does not.
No.
okay, it appeared on the slide that it extends for a mile or so west of 441. But like,
Yeah, in the picture
Slide.
it does. There's
Yeah.
it's a crosshair and it does extend beyond it. To what extent it does, I'm not exactly sure, but I'll assume that it may go to the park like you're saying, and so.
I don't think it does. Maybe we could discuss this a little bit afterwards because yes, it's 1 mile. Proposed length is 2.296 miles. And my question is basically, does it go to the end of Atlantic Avenue, which is FDOT road? And, or does it just extend into almost the end of Atlantic Avenue?
Okay, I'll follow up with FDOT and
Yeah,
the
if-
project
if you know,
manager and
we'll
I'll,
discuss it
I
later.
can, connect with you after the presentation or after the meeting and
Maybe after the meeting, we'll
get
talk about
some,
it.
get more details and then I'll follow up with the
Excellent.
project manager.
Thank
and-
you so much, Mr.
Sure.
Price. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Very good. Do I have any other questions? Do we have anybody? Is either Councilman Thompson looking to be recognized or anybody else?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Okay. I'm going to look for a motion to adopt the resolution approving the amendment number one, the TPA's fiscal year 23-27 Transportation Improvement Program.
Motion so moved.
And that was by Mayor Pinto. I have a second by Mayor Petrolia. Okay, this is going to be a roll call vote. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Steve Wilson. Yvette Drucker,
Yes.
Andy Thompson,
Yes.
Woodrow Hay,
Yes.
Shelley Petrolia,
Yes.
Joe Flores is absent, Jim Krutsky,
Yes.
Ronaldo Diaz,
No.
Joni Brinkman,
Yes.
Catherine Waldron, Melissa McKinley, and Maria Marino are all absent. Maria Sachs. Greg Weiss is absent. Shirley Lanier. Fred Pinto,
Yes.
Michael Napoleon. Christy Fox,
No, due to the inclusion of the State Road 7 extension.
Joseph Paduzzi. Chelsea Reed,
Yes.
Robert Weinroth.
Yes.
This does pass.
It did pass. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, we're going to move on to our second action item and looking for Mr. Kama to make a presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and members of the governing board. Again, I'm Matthew Kama. I'm the CFO for the TPA, and I'm here to present the fiscal year 2023-2024 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, Amendment Number 1. And just a little background and refresher, the UPWP is our business plan, our application for federal grant funds, and our budget for a 2-year period. It began July 1st, 2022, and it will extend until June 30th of 2024. It tells us what we're going to accomplish, who's going to do that work, really how much that effort is going to cost, and where those funds will come from. We have 3 main changes that are occurring in this amendment that we're bringing before you. Now, the first change is regarding a building physical access security system. We had planned and budgeted for this in fiscal 22, which is the last budget cycle. Due to some permitting delays, we couldn't finish the work at that time. So we need to establish the activity and the funds in this new budget cycle to finish that work. It's expected later this fall that we would complete in fiscal 23. We're establishing the funds in task 7, which is our larger administer the agency task. And we're reducing what's available in our public engagement task to accomplish that effort. In addition, there's new requirements starting with this budget and funding cycle to identify peer exchanges within our UPWP. And the upcoming peer exchange at Cap Metro in Austin, we needed to identify that. So you can see on the screen and in the backup, we underlined really that change is a sentence that identifies the activity that's occurring and an up to budget of what might be spent to accomplish that effort. Next, we have a removal of estimated carry forward balance. And for some background, again, our budget is a little bit unique because it's on a 2-year cycle rather than just a single year, because we are almost exclusively grant funded. Now, when we close out a previous funding cycle and we look at the next one, we estimate the funds that we would have available, but we don't include them in the new budget till we finalize. We left the estimate in and adopted with the estimate. So we have to take that out until we close out the last cycle, which is happening in the next 45 days. That will close that out, and then we'll have to re-add the funds later. The total impact of this removal is about $210,000, and that's actually applied to fiscal year 2024 when we need to make that change. And the last item that we're including in this amendment is a reallocation of our local funds that we're using. Because this is a larger budgetary document, we include this even when it includes local funds. We've been guided to focus on our staff, our teamwork, on developing our new and growing team, and some greater performance efforts with training. And to accomplish that, we're going to make an additional $10,000 available from those local funds. Now, what we do with this local fund budget is we program the majority of it, and any funds that are left over go to a reserve account to be used at a later date. If we don't have as much for the reserve, it's reduced, which is what's being reflected by this red arrow and additional funds being added to staff performance. And ultimately, that's the end of the presentation. We're seeking a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 amendment number 1.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments at this time?
There are no public comments at this time.
None? Okay, great. So do we have any board members with comments for our staff today? None? Well, I'm personally glad to see the funds going towards the team building that you guys are doing. It's great to watch it happen as well. So thank you for that. That's it. So I'm seeking a motion to adopt resolution approving amendment 1 to the fiscal year 2023 to 24 Unified Working Program, the UPWP. Okay, Napoleon has the first, second. All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Welcome back. All right, so that closes anything that we have to vote on. We're moving on to information items, and I'm going to pass it back to our chair.
Okay. We took our vote. Very good. Okay. So engineering update. We are, by the way, we're done with our action items. Just let everybody know. So you have other obligations.
Well, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of TPA Board.
Mr. Ricks, it's always great to see you.
Good to be seen, as I say. This is an honor to be here. I'm Dave Ricks. I'm the county engineer and also director of the Engineering Public Works Department of the county. And I want to give you just an update in terms of mid-year update of our federal program. We presented this to the Board of County Commissioners on July 12th. And this is basically the same presentation. I'll provide some enhancements on that and open it for questions. And with me is Kathleen Farrell, who's the Assistant Director of our roadway program. So if I get outside my lane, she will help me on this. But in terms of metrics, we, as the county, we manage 3,500 lane miles throughout all municipalities and unincorporated areas. And also we manage basically 1,200 intersections, which include basically all the municipalities except for City of Boca Raton and Town of Palm Beach, and including the DOT signals in one transportation system. And so it's pretty encompassing and pretty unique responsibility. Okay. So the funding for this program, and it's by statute, and the board, by the county commissioners, passed a program in the mid-'80s in terms of having a capital program for this. And most of the funding comes from gas tax, impact fees and prop share. And we also get money actually from the infrastructure sales tax. And this is basically, it's a 5-year program. We're in the 22 through 26 program. In December, the current year rolls off, the new year starts. And so in December, I'll be presenting the FY 23 through 27 program in December. And we'll be seeking input from all the municipalities as we develop the program before we present it to the board in December. To give you just a historical idea in terms of where the funding has trended, you can see the first column, basically a year ago almost, we had almost $300 million. And then we did the December update on that. And then just recently, the current funding right now, we're looking at $220 million over the 5-year period. And most of that changes in the funding structure. As you well know, a lot of construction costs have accelerated. And so we had to take money out of our basically reserves to fund our current ongoing projects. And so it's a challenge like every other municipality we have in terms of keeping the work going. Separate from this dollars in this program, the county has a infrastructure sales tax program for the engineering department. We manage about $20-30 million on a yearly basis on major improvements to our infrastructure. And then on top of that, the Board of County Commissioners provide $6 million as part of the budget to do resurfacing. So we do have other elements that we fund our infrastructure with. And so just to give you a little perspective, and everyone understands that there are a lot of unique cost increases because of supply chain issues. And you can see, they're looking at the major categories: diesel fuel, steel, copper, PVC, and asphalt, in terms of how the trends are in the past year, 3 years, and 5 years. And it's just an ongoing challenge as we go forward. And a lot of our contractors, especially our fixed price contractors, are having some challenge, especially with concrete and steel, in terms of delays in getting projects done. And so we had to adjust for some of that. And I won't go into detail, but we have projects in each district. But on this one, 2 key ones: the Donald Ross Road Basque Bridge equipment, $8 million. We got programmed for this fiscal year. And then on North Lake, we're going to do a study to look at the impact of potentially if we look at 8-laning North Lake. And so this will be a study to look at the potential impact of North Lake. Not so we're going to do the project, but this would be a more of a comprehensive planning process. For District 2, this will highlight just a couple of projects. Australian Avenue, the one in green there, that's a major project, drainage and multi-purpose project. We also got a grant from the state, and we're coordinating with City of West Palm Beach on that project. That's a drainage improvement. City of West Palm Beach is going to do actually replace their water main, and also they're going to work with FP&L to do some lighting improvement. And so this is really going to be a very unique community project as we go forward. A very tight timeline, but we're looking to really make a tremendous impact. We're doing some work on Haverhill. Later down on Okeechobee Jog Road, we're doing $1.3 million intersection improvements. For District 3, just a highlight on 10th Avenue, we're looking at an intersection improvement, about $2 million. Second project on the list. Florida Mango Road, we're doing some bridge replacement, which is huge, $6 million. And at the end, near the end, Kirk Road, we're doing some widening there. For District 4, this I'll talk about in detail. This past spring, we had some challenges with the George Bush Bridge. It was actually suspended for about 8 weeks until we had to do some emergency repairs. We're in the process of actually doing a study to do that. It's about a $40 million project to replace it. And so we'll be seeking grant funds once we complete the study. For District 5, Third Pick Road, we've got a contract to actually to make that connection, $3.2 million. And then we're doing some work on 18th Street, about 1.9, and Yamato Road, $1.7 million. District 6, we're doing some work on 60th Avenue. There's 2 or 3 projects there that we're working on. Then also County Road 880, a bridge replacement, $4.5 million that we've got programmed. And then Lions Road and Salisbury Way, the board just Tuesday approved basically the bike lane project on that. And so we'll be coordinating with we're also part of that project is being funded with the help with the TPA. Thank you, Valerie. And we'll be coordinating a bike lane kickoff, whatever you call it, on that.
That is the first separated bicycle facility on a county roadway, so in our county. So it'll be a big deal. We're very excited for that.
Yeah. For District 7, Australian Avenue again, that major project that we're coordinating on. Congress Avenue, we're doing intersection improvements. And then, of course, the bridge study again. Because some of these projects overlay districts. So again, this highlight on the George Bush Bridge, we had some operational issues. It's a bridge is pretty old. You see 1949. We're kicking off in the process of selecting a consultant to do $1 million study. It'll take about a year. And that end of that study, they will actually develop a grant for us, and so we can apply for some federal dollars. But the estimated cost is about $40 million on that. And then on the North Lake study, we're in the process of negotiating with a consultant to bring that forward before the board for consideration. And then it'll take about a year to actually do the study on looking at the North Lake area. And then, as our funding is challenged, we are looking, basically grant dollars as a way to kind of, help us meet all the infrastructure needs. You can see that we've got it awarded, $13 million for the Australian Avenue. It really helps us. That's about a $30 million project. We got, almost $500,000 on resurfacing. We just recently in May applied for a mega grant, $120 million for the Belglade upgrade. If anyone who knows about the area in the western areas, Mayor Wilson, you definitely know that by heart, that it's a challenge to keep those roads passable, especially for the farmers. This will actually basically retrofit that area to 18 miles. 18 miles to retrofit it, provide a more stable surface, because we resurface that area every 7 years. Normally we do 20 years in terms of resurfacing. We also are applying for a DOT grant for a Flair Pick Road. And then at the bottom, we just are in the process, actually submitting today, a county-wide safety plan to look at all the areas in terms of have some safety challenges, especially intersections. And we coordinate that with TPA, and thank you, Valerie, for the support letter. And then we've got several bridges that we applied for the Bridge Investment Program. We just submitted that last week. So there's about 4 projects on that list, $30 million that we applied individually on that. And so hopefully, hopefully we'll get some feedback on our applications. But again, we are committed to finding dollars as necessary for our program. And then, and talking about all the things that the TPA is doing in terms of safe streets, we have safe streets as part of our design guides. We actually had a Safe Street project submitted for the Safe Street Summit in this past spring. Our Silver Beach Road, Florida Mango has sidewalks under construction. The Australian Avenue project, that will be a major retrofit in terms of sidewalks and shoulders. We're doing work in the western area, similar to Pratt and North Lake, that will add some walkability and sidewalks on that. And then just I said on the bike lane project, the Lion Salisbury Ray, but we also are submitted for some bike lane projects along Prosperity Road for FY26. And then we are doing, just on the maintenance area, we're slowly retrofitting a lot of our push buttons to make them more enhanced. And then the flashing yellow that we started over a year and a half ago, and we're looking to get dollars to do retrofit all of our intersections with flashing yellow for our left turn. And then the county has a sidewalk program that we coordinate with the sheriff department and also the school board in terms of sidewalk connectivity, especially for walking to school. And that is it. Open for questions.
Okay, before I get to my vice chair, just I don't know if it would be you or Mr. Kama to answer. How do we handle the 40 million for George Bush or the 130 million for the road bed improvements out in the Glades? Is that something that goes into our 5-year plan, or is that basically layered on top of our 5-year plan with infrastructure grants if we can get them?
We're applying for the grant directly. And so if we do get those dollars, we will coordinate with DOT in terms of how we will execute that. But my understanding that it's actually come to the municipality who's applying for the grant. So this was a direct application from Palm Beach County to the feds.
Would we have to adopt an amendment to our TPA spending plans, or how would that work?
Good morning, Andrew Euler, Deputy Director of Program Development. Typically, just like the ones that Brightline received, it goes to them and then it gets into the opt-out work program. And then you'll usually see it in the new tip. So they'll add it to the new tip, and when you see it for the full adoption for the next year, you'll see it in that current year.
Okay, very good. And so who's responsible for actually making those grant requests? Is that going to be out of the county? Is that out of the TPA? Go
The
ahead.
applicant for these federal grants they have to apply directly to the federal grant programs and are awarded directly. We would, as Andrew mentioned, it would be reflected in our tip, but it's additional funding and it's more of an FYI in addition in our tip of projects happening in our area.
Okay, all right, very good.
It's all the grant requests we've coordinated with Valerie in her office as we went through that process.
Very good.
And we are coordinating and providing letters of support for projects improving safety in line with our goals. So.
Okay, very good. All right, Mayor Koretsky?
Couple things. Number one, I want to I've said this before in these meetings, but I'm very grateful for the county's efforts on traffic, transportation. I think we enjoy good collaboration with county staff and town staff. We're grateful. I've always been impressed how immediately county staff jumps on safety issues when they've been raised. So thank you. And I appreciate the transparency in this presentation. I don't know that every year we've always gotten this, but all being affected by the county's budget on transportation improvements. Thank you. I mean, we see this, but I appreciate your coming here and drawing attention. So there's two items I just want to just point out, and I don't necessarily expect a response, but I see two items I was hoping to see in there there are two items I was hoping to see in there that I don't. One involves Donald Ross. I see it looked like the county may have pivoted to intersection improvements at Allison Wilson. I don't remember seeing that before. I understand the benefit of that. Going that way every day, Donald Ross Road is a bridge, is 6 lanes, 3 each way, but 1 lane each way is marked off and has been since the bridge was built. And every time the bridge goes up, it takes a lot longer to clear. So a project that I thought was in the plan was to officially continue the 3 lanes each way to Ellison Wilson. What that would have done was every time the bridge goes up every half hour, the road would clear quicker. So I don't know if you could at least consider that.
Well, and it's in our long-term plan. Our challenge is that we can only program the dollars we have available. And so we've got only $20 million in our current 5-year program. And so when we kind of allocate all the dollars, then everything else basically becomes an out-year project. And so as we begin the next year update, we'll take a look at it and see if we can include that as our next, adding on to our next year 5 years. And so, but it's in our program, trust me. But I just got to have dollars to do that. And so that's the
I
challenge.
understand the dollar limit.
Right.
The Ellison Wilson northbound second turn lane. I also know that one very well because normally I'm waiting in that lane, number one, for the bridge to clear and then to get through it so backed up. So I'm not sure which of those two projects would be a better, but anyway, thank you. And then secondly, for years, there's been a talk, and I thought at one point in time, there in fact was a design on Central Boulevard at Indiantown to add a second northbound lane, through lane. In fact, a town developer put money towards that project that was consumed. The project I thought was engineered and bid, but it was over budget. It was bundled with the Church Street, the Central Boulevard Bridge wide, reconstruction. I'd like to get an update, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here.
No, I'll go take a look at that and get back to you.
Thank you, because that's a pretty important one. That's a pretty overcapacity intersection.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Wilson, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ricks, thank you for the update from the county 5-year road program. I'm glad you acknowledged the fact that we can't wait 20 years to resurface State Road 80 with the heavy trucks going on. On the mega grant that you guys apply, I don't know if there's a sunset time that it's going to be awarded. We're going to send a prayer that it does be awarded to us. In the event we're not awarded that 128 million, is there a backup resource identified that you guys, knowing that 7 years, we need to continue doing that? Have you guys identified a backup resource?
We have dollars in our resurfacing program, and some of those dollars are allocated toward the western area. And so we got dollars programmed to do resurfacing along that whole stretch of roadway. And so we do basically 1 to 2 miles every year along that whole stretch to keep it up. And so we have dollars allocated. Now, ideally, you want to basically retrofit the whole thing. We don't have the dollars. So until we get these large capital dollars, we will continue to do our 7-year cycle along those increments.
Thank you.
So just to clarify on that, the road bed is really the issue. So we're just putting good money after bad until we address the road bed.
That is correct. And so for the farmers, the challenge for them is that they can only go so fast because the roadbed is so bad that they'll start losing their product. And so actually I did a tour with my staff with the farmers out there about 6 weeks ago. And they expressed, the challenge with just the crops and maintaining, getting, the crops to the market. And we said, we have a program and we're going to try to do some more resurfacing actually in December, January, some critical areas that they've highlighted. But it's an ongoing, we're just trying to manage what we got with the limited dollars we have. The true fix is really that federal grant. And I just want to give a commendation to the growers. When we submitted that grant in May, I sent a note out to Valley Valenzuela, Ron Rice and the growers. And within a day, I got like almost 35 letters of support. So that's part of the grant application. Right? So we will hopefully we'll get some feedback in terms of if we get a nod. But we highlighted how the impact, the resource of the growers into the overall community, business community, that market has $1 billion that those growers provide to the overall business community nationally. And so that's a major corridor that we need some federal dollars to help us on that.
Going to be a nightmare when they actually do that work because that's a major, connector between the east and the west. I don't know how they're going to logistically handle that.
Well, you give me the dollars, we'll figure it out.
Mayor Reed?
I like hearing that you're out there with the growers. That's wonderful. Nothing like seeing it firsthand. So you mentioned briefly a study that the county is working on regarding 8-laning North Lake Boulevard. Can you tell me how much that was going to
Well,
cost? the
we're still
taxpayers?
working through getting actually a final cost from the consultant. And so we have not still going back and forth in terms of that number. And once we get a number that we thought was reasonable, we'll present that to the board probably in November, December for consideration to approve the contract. And once the contract gets approved, then it's a 12-year process to get that study done. And so we'll definitely involve
You had a
all
number up. You did have a number up. It was like 400,000 or.
Yeah, that's a planning number, but we want to get something lower than that. And so.
But we're talking about $500,000 of taxpayer money to consider the possibility of adding extra lanes, which we know don't work to move people. It does nothing but add more cars to the road on an area that goes through 5 different jurisdictions as well as natural space. So why is it possibly worth spending $500,000 on a project that you even said you're not going to do when you presented it a moment ago? You said we're most likely not going to do it.
I just said that it's up to the board for consideration. And so the board directed me, I presented in June that we will start, we'll take a look at this planning document and present that to the board. And so I'm in the process of getting a contract to present to the board. It's up to the board to make a final decision.
Right. It's a planning document that could cost $500,000 and you're saying it's 190% increase in prices for most of your supplies currently going forward. And we talk about safe streets and what the TPA has been trying to do. And we know that adding lanes and adding roadway capacity just puts more cars on the road. It doesn't necessarily fix the issue. So I just don't understand why we're taking time and money to look at something that's probably not feasible. And now you're telling us is 12 years away.
It'll be up for the board to make a final determination. I understand.
Well, okay, great. Just so obviously the city is not in great support of that. We even passed a resolution against it. Thank you.
I understand.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody else? Commissioner Diaz, you are recognized.
Yeah, I echo that notion as well, like putting money towards future projects that isn't really looking at the future, right? Adding lanes, we know is the direction that we're not really supposed to be going in most areas. But I did want to ask maybe a clarifying question about just policy on like timing, especially for pedestrian crossings. There's a number of signals in our town where you have to sprint across, like literally sprint across just to make it across 4 lanes. So like, how is that determined? And, is there improvement coming up in the next 5 years on that? Is there better technology?
Well, I mean, we are always constantly evolving our technology, but if there's certain intersections that you think that need to be tweaked a little bit, send that to me and we'll take a look at that. Because a lot of times our best feedback is from citizens in terms of where we have some challenges in our infrastructure. So.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Did we have any public comments to,
There were no public comments, Mr. Chair.
very good. Thank you. Mr. Ricks, we appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, takes us to our good friends at Palm Tran. Mr. Forbes, always good to see you. And I,
Like David Ricks, is always great to be seen.
okay, and we love seeing your buses. And if everybody doesn't know, you have a brand new bus going through the town, highlighting Hispanic,
Hispanic Heritage Month, which
Hispanic
actually
Heritage
started today through October.
very
So we're
good.
very proud of, I always say that Palm Tran is just not a bus company. We're an integral part of the community. And that's a part of our community contribution. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to present to you our zero emission transition plan. We will share with you today some high level details of our strategy to begin to transition to zero emission. Public transportation systems across America are committed to growing ridership, but we are also committed to achieving carbon neutrality. I've always said that public transit has been green before green was popular. Okay, so today we're going to just update you on our zero emissions plan. It is estimated that in the US, public transportation saves 37 million metric tons of carbon dioxide annually. But given that public transport in cities is also one of the largest contributors to pollution, public transit still has a long way to go in fulfilling its important role. So Palm Tran's master electrification plan has the primary objective of implementing battery electric vehicles to reduce Palm Tran's carbon footprint. Also, while electric buses are still priced at a premium compared with their diesel powered counterparts, data shows electric buses can have a lower cost of ownership and are competitive with diesel buses when comparing the life cycle costs in terms of better efficiency and lower maintenance costs. So these are the components of our master fleet electrification plan. We prepared already our zero emissions transition plan that's been completed. We've applied for federal grants, and that was required as a part of the Federal Transit Administration application process. The fleet electrification analysis, the modeling is in progress. Our consultants are helping us with that. And we want a turnkey approach to selecting a vendor, a bus builder, so that we can begin quickly introducing electric vehicles to our community. And there's a shot of the chair and I a few years ago when we had several of our bus builders visit. We were very strategic about investigating the original equipment manufacturers to get a taste of what the product is and the range of the batteries, and to get a greater understanding of electrification. And so we had all of the US bus builders visit us and actually place their vehicle in service. And Mr. Chair, you was a part of actually viewing those buses as well. We put them in service on one of our shortest routes in West Palm Beach and see how they perform. Now, that was 3 years ago. I would tell you the evolution of the battery and the technology has evolved. And when you look at electric buses and transit, our greatest concern is range. Can the bus, continue in service and have the same cadence as a diesel bus? And the electric battery technology is definitely getting there with range. So these are the builders that are in the United States now. They are also affected by the global supply chain issues. They are affected by the demand nationwide with transit properties all really transitioning to electrification. And I do have to state that BYD, effective in 2022, BYD America no longer qualifies for Federal Transit Administration grants due to updates to the National Defense Authorization Act, which prohibits FTA funding from being used to purchase buses from suppliers from non-market economies such as China. And so you would see, just in case you're approached by BYD and they want to talk to you, we cannot purchase those buses. They're still working to get that changed, but they have been affected by that act. What we'll do is take you through our plan, the zero emissions transition plan. I have Christian Londano here from my staff. He is the Senior Manager of Performance Management, and Christian will take you through the plan and will be available to answer any questions.
Very
at the
good.
end.
Mr. Gretzky, do you want to wait for the whole presentation? Okay.
All right, good morning. Christian Londano, I'm the Senior Manager of Performance Management for Palmtree. So the bipartisan infrastructure law signed by the President November 15, 2021, amended the statutory provisions for the grant for buses and bus facilities and then low or no emission programs to include the requirement that any application for projects related to zero emission vehicles include a zero emission transition plan. So that's the reason why we completed ours, so we can get those federal dollars. So transit operators like Palmtree looking to transition their fleet to zero emission technology must complete such required plan in order to apply for funding, as well as strategically implement zero emission strategy. The outcome of this study is to provide Palmtree with a high level replacement schedule. So we'll present that to you today, as well as our goal for zero emission transition. Let me see. So Palmtree engaged WSP to complete the study. The zero emissions transition plan addresses the items in the FDA's December 1st, 2021 Dear Colleague letter, and will review the infrastructure required for operating zero emission buses. And it evaluates these six very key components for the plan, which is our fleet, the funding, the regulations, facilities, utilities, which is our relationship with our power provider, would be FPL, and the impact to our workforce. So Palmtree has a total of 142 fixed route vehicles as of March 2022. As shown in this table, Palmtree existing fixed route fleet, the majority of vehicles are Gillig, low floor 40-foot buses. Most vehicles are internal combustion engine, ICE vehicles, though 15 buses in the existing fleet are hybrid diesel vehicles. Palmtree standard for replacing vehicles is the FDA standard of 12 years or 500,000 miles. Due to the large geographic size of Palm Beach County, over 1,170 square miles of land area, Palmtree typically replaces vehicles after 500,000 miles. So we reach the mileage way before we reach the years, although we reach about 10 to 11 years when we do the replacement of the vehicles. So you can imagine that when we're planning the replacement of the vehicles, we have to replace at the rate as the vehicles age and they're ready for replacement. And this is our first initial goal that came out of this study. Palm striving for a 25% low or no emission fleet. This would mean acquisition of 42, including 3 spares, low or no emission vehicles gradually over time. A fleet replacement plan reflecting this gradual addition of 42 electric buses is shown in the agency plans to research this area further to arrive at a long-term transition plan to determine how low and no emission goals can be best met. And you can see that we're shooting for 2032 and then kind of like it staggers there. And like Mr. Forbes mentioned a few minutes ago, the main concern for transit providers is range. It really affects our operation. As technology evolves, we definitely look into making this goal more aggressive. So the plan assumes the vehicles will be replaced after 11 years and no additional diesel hybrid vehicles will be purchased moving forward. Battery electric buses will be added to the fleet starting in 2024 in alignment with current procurement plans. And under this proposed fleet replacement plan, Palm would reach a 25% low or no emission fleet by 2032. There are many ways to address range issues of battery electric buses, including on-route opportunity charging, adjusting the current run and blocking structure, as well as operator performance. So modeling an agency service is always a good idea for the agency to understand how to best deploy the buses. But in the case of Palm, it's a critical step towards a successful zero emission transition. And we'll mention a little bit later about the modeling, our strategy to do the modeling for our service. In terms of funding, to fund future expansion, Palm has secured funding for its zero emission bus investment through the Palm Beach Transportation Agency's local initiatives program, as shown in the table here. And I want to echo Mr. Forbes' comments, thanking the TPA for supporting our efforts to electrify our fleet. Palm received 4.3 million local initiatives funding to purchase 3 electric buses and install charging station at the North County maintenance facility during the 2019 application cycle, with the project being given the highest priority ranking. And the agency received an additional 5 million local initiatives funding during the 2020 application process to purchase 4 more electric buses and install supporting electric charging stations at the North County facilities. With the previous grant, this project was given the highest prioritization during that application year. Our facilities. So Palm has 3 operations and maintenance facilities for consideration as part of our zero emission plan. These facilities are spread throughout the county. And they all provide similar operations and maintenance functions for Palm. The South County and North County facilities are the most active of the 3 facilities. We are looking to electrify them all and looking some potential charging stations are our intermodal transit center. Since most of our routes convey there, that will be a great opportunity for them to get that opportunity charging, so we can keep those vehicles on the road. And it's worth mentioning that Palm South County headquarters, recently renovated, was outfitted with infrastructure to support Palm's future bus chargers. So that's the facility that's pretty much ready to take that new infrastructure. Workforce. As you can see in this table shows the impact to our workforce and the job impact based on the identified different positions. So mechanics will require the most in-depth and robust training program related to the zero emission conversion. This conversion will impact not only regular preventive maintenance schedules, but also a different troubleshooting process, and most importantly, different safety precautions as to appropriate PPE and how to work with high voltage systems. So it is expected, as we spoke with our peers, this training is usually provided by the battery electric bus vendors. So we'll be working with them to certify all of our technicians and mechanics so they are able to serve our vehicles. And like we said earlier, it is critical for us moving forward to do a modeling of a computer simulation of our service, being operated with electric vehicles. So what does this does for us, and this is where we are in terms of our electrification strategy today. What this is going to do is two things. One is help us identify the amount of energy that we're going to need at each one of our facilities. So when we sit down with FPL, we can have that conversation. The first question they always ask is, how much power do you need? So they know what infrastructure has to be in place to supply. So this would allow us to answer that question. And the second part is to be able to spec out our vehicles and infrastructure so we can place our first order. So that's where we are today. And my last slide that I want to share with you today is this picture. Last month of August, Palm Trend visited Broward County Transit's Ravenswood Electric Bus Depot. We coordinated this visit along with our SEIU and ATU employee unions, as well as Palm Trend's executive leadership team. Broward County Transit provided great feedback regarding the recent implementation of 12 Proterra battery electric buses, as well as a solar power charging infrastructure. We will incorporate their feedback into our following steps. In a matter of fact, they suggested that for us to do the modeling that we're getting ready to do. And at Palm Trend, we will continue working towards the implementation of the first battery electric bus in Palm Beach County and support the transition from internal combustion engines to zero emission technologies. And with that, I conclude the presentation.
Thank
So
you
I'll
very
just-
much.
Thank you.
Just one question before I recognize Mayor Koretsky. Your transition seems to stagnate at 2032. It just seems to just sort of level off. I would expect it to take off. Why is that the projection?
So keep in mind that the plan is a draft. And we continue to work on the comprehensive plan. And so one of the things that we have to take into consideration with our fleet replacement, and this is a long-term proposition. So we have the majority of our fleet, we have a very young fleet. Average fleet age is under 5 years or about 5 years. And we purchase those vehicles using federal dollars. And so the federal government requires that you keep those vehicles for either 12 years or 500,000 miles. If you dispose of those vehicles before that time, the federal government wants their money back, right? You know about that, right? So we just purchased last year, I think 21 vehicles, right? And so that's 500,000 miles or 12 years. And so that's also contemplated in that schedule, that replacement schedule. So we have to refine that working with our consultants. But I would tell you and commit to you that schedule is going to be far more aggressive than that kind of plateau, with those years. We haven't completed the analysis of the replacement schedule in those out years. And so that work is yet to be done.
And again, I noticed that there's a leveling off of the fleet size, assuming that we are able to come to an agreement of a transportation surtax and gave you better funding going forward. Would it be your contemplation that you'd be able to expand the fleet and that expansion would be more electrified than internal combustion?
Yes, we will plan for that expansion to be more be electric vehicles. And of course, if we improve and expand access, it will require more operators and more buses. Eventually, we'll have automated buses, self-driving buses. But until that time, we need our operators. And so we will add, additional electric buses as well as operators.
If you had a crystal ball, would you see us going to smaller capacity vehicles to be more nimble as the fleet continues to evolve? Or do you see these buses being the backbone of your fixed route system?
I see a mix for Palm Beach County, which is one of the largest counties, east of the Mississippi in geography. And so, a perfect test is in the Glades region, where you have one of the country's high-performing microtransit options, mobility on demand, using smaller vehicles, has a cadence like Uber and Lyft, hailing the bus with technology, a huge success. We would like to emulate that in the eastern part of the county given, a dedicated source of funding, you definitely need funding to do it, that can be complementary to the fixed route system. So my vision of the fixed route system is to be as linear as possible. That's the most effective fixed route system. And using the smaller buses and community kind of shuttle, similar to the Go Glades service, to feed the main system and circulate within that the community boundaries. And so that's a part of our transit development plan for 2031, our 10-year vision. And so we have identified several areas like Royal Palm, Riviera, Boca, I think Palm Beach Gardens, was like 7 to 10 areas that we can implement, given the funding, a similar service like Go Glades that will be complementary to the fixed route system. So do I see the fixed route system growing exponentially? No, to your point, I do see more smaller buses that are complementary to the fixed route system.
Very good. And final question before I get to Mayor Koretsky. Obviously, Brightline is about to show up in Boca. We're all excited about that. Are you making adjustments to the routes so that there'll be complementary Palm Tran service to move those people once they either arrive or to get them to the Boca station?
Yes, and I actually have coffee set with one of the Brightline executives tomorrow morning. And we're going to talk about that and maybe them loaning us a few of their Teslas. So yes, we are coordinating with Brightline. That's a great system. We do have some, believe it or not, we do have some mutual customers. We know that the price point is a lot different for both of our systems. But we definitely want to make sure that our modes, talk to each other and, we're working together. So yes, the answer is yes to that. Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mr. Forbes. Mayor, you've been very patient.
Just an item, and I don't know that you have an answer now, but I know the industry is still in its infancy, but be interested to know what the market availability of battery warranty is, battery life warranty. Not too early to start looking at it because there could be a disconnect with the federal regulations of 12 years.
Yeah, and Christian, you might want to come back up. Some of the information when we went on the tour, they shared, they have an electrical engineer that was the project manager, and they shared some of the tips on purchasing the battery components, which is it's really the engine of the vehicle. And Christian, you want to kind of share what they said about.
But just if I can, just to preface again why I was asking that question, because I've recently been involved in battery energy storage projects around the country and procuring batteries. So I'm a little bit more familiar about warranties, but the federal government is mandating that you got to keep the bus 12 years, then the market has to be able to deliver a battery powered bus that'll last 12 years without batteries needing to be replaced. So that's why I was asking, because if the market isn't there, then we need to influence the federal government to change their standards, if you will. So that's why I was asking that question.
Right, and during our conversation, the recommendation is to take the full warranty for the batteries to make sure that for the life of the bus, you will always be covered. They did had one of their buses, one of the batteries failing, and the manufacturer replaced it for them. So that's definitely a great recommendation. They also shared with us that they went with a maximum range that is available right now from the manufacturers, just because range is a concern. And some of the other things they're doing just to keep their operation running, even during emergency response, like hurricanes when the power goes out. So they actually have a battery storage facility that they installed that taps into their diesel tanks. So in the event that they were to lose power, they would use the diesel fuel to be able to create power and empower the buses just to operate a generator. Yes. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you?
Technology is like evolving where the life cycle of the battery, is lasting longer. The range of it's taking our vehicles, longer to be recharged. So we expect by the time that we have our first bus procured and in service, that we'll be able to, we might not have to do out of facility charging. In other words, we didn't have to charge while we're in service. We can charge at the facility and the battery will last all day.
Very good. Mayor Reed?
Oh, just if you could recap the number of buses I saw, we had the list of the different grants that were given, and I was trying to count them up. Are we up to
Can we go
13
back
buses
there?
coming?
Yeah, so we have, and thank you again for to Valerie and the board for your local initiatives program where we were able,
Well, this is exciting. I don't know about you
Yeah.
guys. This is great to hear.
three, and those first three, we're anticipating in 24, 25. And those will be the introduction of our first electric vehicles. And in 25, we have $5 million more for 4 electric vehicles. And that also includes the infrastructure. And then we also receive $1.8 million from the Volkswagen settlement. And so we're excited about that as well. So that's 11.1 and more than $9 million from the TPA. So thank you again for your support. And
Thank you so much. This
we'll
is
be looking
really-
for more money.
Yeah, okay, of course, but of course.
These buses are, they're twice right now. They're twice as much as a diesel bus, close to $1 million. And what we have done working, and I am the chair of the Florida Public Transportation Association, we've established a consortium, electric bus consortium in Pinellas, where all the Florida transit properties can purchase from that consortium. And, it helps with price because of economies of scale. And so that will bring the price of the buses down just slightly, but they still are very pricey.
What are you paying for diesel these days?
About 575,000 for a diesel bus,
So
fully
it-
loaded.
it doesn't take a long time for you to have that crossover point if you're doing electric versus diesel, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
Commissioner Sacks?
Thank you so much, Mayor. This is really exciting, Clinton, and maybe one day we'll be able to recharge our batteries from solar power rather than electrical through fossil fuels, and I look forward to that day. But I want to acknowledge Clinton for especially your statement at the very beginning of your presentation when you said, we're not just a transportation company, we're part of the community. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are having a Veterans Benefit Fair September 28th here in the county. And Clinton has graciously offered to use PalmTran to transport our veterans, many of whom do not have transportation because of their age or disability, to the Veterans Benefit Fair here at the South County Civic Center. So you are certainly part of our community. And I wanted to acknowledge that publicly. Clinton, thank you so much for all you do for not just today, for our, especially for our veterans and our people here, but for your vision in the future as we look forward to good public transportation. Thank you, Clinton.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner.
You
Thank
know,
you.
obviously the Palm Tran and all transportation creates opportunities for our residents, both employment opportunities and opportunities to get out and about. So it's very important. Mayor
That's our
Wilson.
mission statement.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Ford was absolutely right. To your point, having those smaller vessels in communities, it's not a cookie cutter where you have one size fit all. It works perfect for the Glades community, having the Go Glades of smaller vehicles. I mean, it's perfect. So we're proud to say in the Glades that we're setting the precedent for everybody to jump on board and have those kind of vehicles, because I'm telling you, the citizens of the Glades are really happy about that. Thank you for thinking outside the box.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I think we're, well, I do see one more card up, Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah. Sorry, Christian. A quick question, kind of a little bit two-part question. This is really exciting, and it's it's one of those things where you wish you could snap your fingers and it was all out there already. But is there an idea of where like the first main buses are going to go? And also, is there a plan to go in conjunction with that to improve those bus stops? Because in Lake Worth, we have some of the most used bus stops. And And some of them are, out in the blazing sun and they don't exactly encourage great use. So I think part of lessening our carbon footprint is encouraging people to use the buses. If they were EV buses, they're going to be all over it, but also, people don't want to stand out in the hot sun. So is there kind of a conjunction plan to improve those bus stops to be maybe charging stations themselves or, anything
Thank
like
you
that?
for your question. On the first part of your question, where we would implement the first lot of buses, our shortest route. And our shortest route actually exists in West Palm Beach. It's, I believe, Route 49 that goes to the Palm Beach outlets. Or is it 20 now? I think it's Route 20 now. We combined it. So that will probably be the first where the first set of buses will go. And as we implement, or as we procure and deliver more buses, we will look at other areas in the county. But eventually it'll serve the entire community, the electric buses. In terms of the infrastructure, and I'd like to refer to it as the street furniture, we have, and I'm not sure, I thought we had an update the last meeting, TPA on bus shelters, or is that up? All right, so we are going to coordinate with your executive director to give a pretty comprehensive update on our aggressive bus shelter replacement and expansion plan, because that's critically important for our riders. With the inclement weather here in South Florida, it's important to have cover. And so our current shelters have exceeded their useful life, and we're going to aggressively replace them and expand our shelter footprint along our system. And we have a request for a proposal that is due to go out in just a month or two. They're going to be sleek, very, forward-thinking, forward-looking shelters. We are going to be meeting with the respective cities to talk to you about the new design and the process. I think we've already met with the city of West Palm Beach. We have a meeting with the city of Boca, and we'll be planning a meeting with your city and all the cities, because you have, our system goes through your cities. Many of you have relationships with our current bus advertising contractor. So we want to make sure that we coordinate the implementation of new shelters, but that's one of our most aggressive plans. I will tell you that your board has also been a part of that. I think we have north of $10 million in your program to fund the expansion of bus shelters in the Transportation Improvement Program. And so we are moving quickly to do that. We are looking at a bus stop design. And so we have more than 2,900 bus stops in Palm Beach County, and each of them have a bus stop sign. And so we are looking at also redesigning that sign to, again, make it more user-friendly for our customers. And my vision, because the COVID-19, the silver lining for COVID-19 is it's this crisis has made us be a little more innovative in how we do things. And so, when you visited a restaurant during COVID, they didn't have the menus for you. What did you have to do? Use your QR code. And that technology had already been around, but it just took it to another level with QR codes. QR codes are everywhere now. And so we're going to do something similar where each bus stop would have a distinct QR code. And when you point your camera to that code, you should be able to see that bus exactly where it is and how long it's going to take to get to you. And so that's my vision of our bus stops in Palm Beach County. Want to make it that's just that seamless, just that easy for a customer to catch a bus. And so that's also going to be as a part of this project to improve our street furniture in Palm Beach County and all our beautiful cities.
Oh, that sounds awesome. A quick follow-up when it comes to like the designs of new shelters, are you talking like climate control, better, solar powered fans, whatever it may be, that sort of thing?
They will be solar powered. The climate control has been tested, but it hasn't been very successful.
Okay.
Because very similar to our catalytic converters. People have found, in Miami, they tested a air-conditioned shelter and it just didn't last. You know, it was vandalized, the parts were stolen. It's very tough to keep up with, controlled, air conditioning of a shelter. But we are going to have solar powered shelter and lighting. And so that will be definitely a feature as a part of our expansion program.
Thank you.
You know, since I was on the PTSB, I've been a real strong advocate for the choice rider being encouraged to use the system. And of course, having more shelters out there has been I've been beating the drum on that. Part of the problem on that has been some of the municipalities don't want advertising on the shelters. So how are we going to address that? My good friends from Boca have basically said, keep it away. But, we need bus shelters, especially in Boca, if we're going to attract those riders onto the system. So how do you plan to address that?
Well, we're still working through that, and we're going to have a conversation with Boca about that. We will, we've been blessed also through this pandemic to have really a bundle of money from the federal government. With the new infrastructure bill, we expect to have a substantial amount of money for our bus shelters. And so I don't think, money is going to be an issue in terms of installation of the shelters. What usually is the issue is, maintaining the shelters, ensuring that the trash bins are emptied, cleaning around the shelter. So, when we talk to the cities, we're going to be looking for participation in that area. So it may be the initial capital outlay to install the shelter, and the infrastructure will be, we can, expense that. But the ongoing maintenance of the shelter, we're having conversations about that with the cities to get that support.
Okay.
Especially if you're not going to advertise, which helps offset the expense of maintaining the shelter.
Understood. I think Councilwoman Drucker wants to pipe in about Boca.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Yes, your team was out, or the folks from the bus shelter at our workshop on Monday, and we kind of reviewed that because our biggest obstacle really is the advertising, because we don't allow digital in our city, and there's certain, we just don't, it's just not part of our code. So I do think that we have an appetite. They're meeting with staff, which is important. One of my council members, Monica May, brought it forward to our workshop as a discussion. So we're definitely looking at it with the arrival of Brightline. We need to think outside of the box. So we are grateful for them coming out and starting. And I never got the presentation. I just requested it right now, where it showed, which ones we have without shelter because it is, hot, or the ones that are still just like a stand pole out there. So definitely the council has an appetite to review and see how we can improve. Of course, it comes down to cost. It comes down to the advertising, but there is an appetite as the Brightline comes. It's coming.
And Mr. Chair, you may remember this from our discussions on PTSB. We have 2,900 bus stops, and of course, the right of way at those 2,900 bus stops does not allow us to install a shelter at all 2,900 bus stops. So our method will be really simple, and that is we want as many shelters installed throughout the county where you can be at a non-sheltered bus stop and look down maybe 400 or 500 feet and see a shelter. And so that if the weather is bad, it's hot, or it starts to rain, you can just walk down to the next shelter. You can't do that in many parts of the county now, but that's going to be our strategy kind of implementation as we install shelters, is that you should be able to look around at a non-sheltered bus stop and say, well, it's going to rain, let me go to this stop and I'll catch the bus there. And so that's kind of going to be our strategy.
That's certainly a good strategy. I applaud. Mayor Brinkman?
You kind of just answered part of my question right there. My question was,
Your red light's not on. There you go.
my question was going to be, the redesign of the bus shelters. Will they all fit within your standard easement that you have throughout the county? Or would you be able to potentially design a couple of different options if you have a smaller easement?
Very, very good question. So there will be what we call slimline shelters that will fit in smaller spaces where we don't have as much space. We will be aggressively working with our facilities development and operations department to request easements from property owners, from cities, where we would need more space to install a shelter. And so that will be a part of the program, but we will have a design that's a slimline shelter that won't offer as much coverage. But if you stand a certain way, depending on where the sun is shining, you're covered.
Those of us who are a little bit, have more girth will have a problem. All right, I'm going to let our executive director finish up the discussion.
Thank you so much. Very exciting. I just wanted to mention in response to Commissioner Diaz's question about the shelters, I wanted to mention and just bring attention to our enhanced transit desires quarters that we worked with Palmtran to identify. We did study US one of the highest transit ridership corridors a couple of years ago. We prioritized dollars for enhanced transit shelters where they fit within the right of way. Those are going to be coming up soon, including this is all the way from Boca all the way up to Jupiter. So those are coming up. We have
Thank you,
program
Valerie.
for 14 shelters and also electric buses along US one. We programmed of dollars for that. And we're looking at the other corridors in that plan with those highest transit ridership, continuing to work with Palmtran, regardless if a local funding source were to happen, to prioritize capital dollars for electric buses, enhanced transit shelters, transit single priority along all of these corridors, looking at, and over this next year, we'll be working together to look at other corridors such as Lake Worth, Atlantic, Forest Hill, Glades, Congress, Military, just continuing to plug along and work it into the work program. So we appreciate the collaborative effort, not just with Palmtran, but also Palm Beach County Engineering with the signals and all the efficiency improvements.
Thank you. I really appreciate the collaboration.
And thank you so much. I know we're running out and there's time and it has been sprinkling outside. So staff put out some ponchos in the reception if anyone needs to not get wet.
All right,
Thank you.
I thank you. We're coming up on 11. I usually like to try and kill it at 11. So are there any other matters, any other agencies? Mayor Petrolia. There you
Very
go.
briefly, I'm sorry, I wasn't here earlier in the meeting to be able to just put this out there, but I had an opportunity to meet with and speak to the National Association of Counties who are convening in the city of Delray Beach. And one of the things that they brought up, this is their economic mobility leadership group. But one of the things that they brought up was how quickly the trains come through the town. And it was almost because these are county electeds from across the nation. And they said that there is such little warning and the sounds are not as great as they should be. And this was not just one, but several. Because they had the opportunity of walking on our street and they thought, wow, it's no wonder we have as many accidents as we're having. That's what their thoughts were, because in their area, it's ding, 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 a large amount of time. And then the train comes through. But they were saying that it was so quick that we should probably look at that. So I know we're going to be meeting and I thought I'd just put that out there just so you can.
Yeah,
bring
well,
it up.
certainly, quiet zones are part of the problem and, to be able to change that, it would be very difficult in many communities, but I think
It wasn't about it was more
it's
about.
the
just
gates going down,
It's going
not
down and
quick
then
enough.
almost immediately the train coming through. So
Really?
in other
All
words,
right.
very little notice and they come through so fast. It was interesting to hear that from somebody from outside of our area. We're used
Interesting.
to it. So I just thought I'd pass that along. But
appreciate
Thank you very
that.
much for that opportunity to speak about that.
Okay, now I don't see any more cards up. I think we have exhausted most of the subjects that were in front of us. I thank everybody for making the presentation and making yourself available for the meeting. We're adjourned until our next meeting on October 20th, 2022.